You know that saying, the more I get to know people, the more I love animals. That's my new motto. And let me tell you, I'm absolutely smitten with my cat, a dignified creature by the name of Amelia. And trust me, there's a reason for that. This little mustachioed rascal did me a huge favor. Thanks to him, I was able to eliminate someone from my life who was, frankly, unnecessary. How did a simple cat manage this, you ask? Well, here's the kicker. I found Amelia on the street when he was just a kitten. I don't know how it happened, but there he was, all alone on the sidewalk, mewing his heart out for help. I couldn't just walk by, and that's how I ended up with a little striped buddy. The scared, shaking kitten soon transformed into a plump, arrogant cat named Amelia. He loved everyone and would fawn over all our guests, leaving them in a whirlwind of emotions. A couple of years later, I met my future wife. Amelia greeted her like a real one. That's her nature. 6 months later, we started living together, and a year later we got married. We even started thinking about having children, but decided to hold off on it until we figure out the whole housing situation. By that time, I was living in a rented one-bedroom apartment. But fortunately, I have saved enough money to buy a house. We definitely need an apartment in a good area, preferably in a new building with parking, a park nearby, and a beautiful view, my wife said, looking through the real estate listings. Yes, and when the baby is born, we'll have to go for a walk, I said. If we are going to buy an apartment, then it must be good. My career in a furniture factory was on the rise, so we could afford something more luxurious. We didn't waste any time. A couple of months later, we were standing in our very own 2-room apartment. The building was still new, so we didn't have many neighbors, but there were a few. One of them was Matthew, who didn't waste any time coming over for a visit. Hey neighbor, let's get to know each other. I live next door and I'm doing some renovations. A tanned guy showed up at the door. Sure, come on in. Let's have some tea. My wife immediately invited him in. Oh, and this is our cat Amelia. Come here, buddy, I added. And then something unexpected happened. The cat arched his back, hissed, and before we knew it, he disappeared, probably hiding somewhere in the apartment. Your cat isn't very friendly, Matthew remarked. He's probably just stressed from the move. Cats, you know, get attached to a place, not people. Don't worry, he's actually very sweet, my wife explained. I didn't give it much thought at the time. Maybe the poor guy was just nervous. We went on to enjoy our tea and sandwiches. Matthew seemed really interested in my job as a furniture expert and asked if he could visit us again for advice. I didn't mind at all. He seemed like a good guy, and honestly, I wanted to show off a bit in front of my wife. After Matthew left, Amelia didn't come out until a couple of hours later. He immediately went straight to his food bowl. Even though the renovation was moving quickly, I couldn't always be around. The work wasn't going to do itself, and I mostly hired contractors to do the heavy lifting. My wife took care of overseeing them. A couple of times when I got home, I noticed that Amelia wasn't at the door waiting for me like he always did. Did Matthew drop by? I asked, trying to sound casual. How do you know? My wife rolled her eyes at me. Well, the cat's clearly not thrilled, and I'm guessing he's not fond of our neighbor, I said, not really expecting an answer. But to my surprise, she confirmed it. Honey, you know how tough it is for girls to handle things on their own. I asked him to put up the shelf. Otherwise, there's no place to keep the mugs. You've been busy with work, she explained. Sure enough, the shelf was up, and I didn't pay it much mind at the time. It was curious, though, that other neighbors had also come by to introduce themselves. A pair of energetic twin sisters, an elderly couple, and a single mom with her young son. And Amelia, as usual, was friendly to everyone, letting himself be petted, even by the rambunctious 2-year-old. But as for Matthew, the cat wasn't exactly rolling out the welcome mat. In fact, he seemed to hate him as much as he hated getting his claws trimmed or taking a bath. He had a deep feline resentment for the guy. After Matthew left, Amelia disappeared for a couple of hours, only emerging when the coast was clear. At first, I thought nothing of it, but the pattern kept repeating. Every time I came home, there was no sign of my cat. My wife kept brushing it off, then insisted that Matthew hadn't been by. Maybe we should take Amelia to the vet. He's been acting really skittish, she suggested again, but I wasn't buying it. Something felt off. So I decided to take a day off to do a little detective work. I made a deal with the elderly couple across the hall to keep an eye out for me, and I set up shop by the peephole, which offered a perfect view of the hallway. And as luck would have it, it didn't take long. Matthew soon left his apartment and headed straight for ours. I waited for what felt like forever, another 15 minutes before I finally decided it was time to confront the situation. Maybe you need a veterinarian too. Did you snuggle up to each other like in some animal documentary? I almost screamed when I found them in my bed. Needless to say, I took care of Matthew's face. He was shorter than me, but thanks to working at the factory, I was much stronger. On the same day, my wife packed her suitcase and went to her mother. My last gift to her: a bus ticket. I couldn't live in this apartment anymore, so I put it up for sale. But as for Amelia, she now regularly receives her favorite treats. She deserved them. I know that I will find someone loyal again. And in the meantime, Amelia will keep an eye on what is happening, look after me, and guard my peace.